Great evening, everyone. Just hold on one moment. We want to thank you so much for your patience. As you know, we do not become defeated, and here we are. So, great evening, and welcome to the Sonya Dungee podcast, episode number 225. Tonight, I'm
Woohoo.
going to ask you to number one, to please tell us the geographical area in which you are tuning from. We always like to know where so that we can shout you out. And number two, um, if you find value, there's no if, no buts, no maybes, because we know that you will find value tonight with our special guests. But please let us know in the chat if you hit that value or if you had an aha moment or a breakthrough. We would truly like to know. Also, tonight's episode number 225 is being brought to you by Always Destined for Greatness, B Lips, and Drip City Customs, LLC. So, with that being said, um, again, welcome to the Sonya Dungee podcast. My name is Sonya Dungee. I am the host, where conversation is always the essence of the soul. Nothing has changed with that. Um, and also, which is very important, um, in our conversation, that is always the essence of the soul. This is going to be an incredible part two. For those of you who are watching part one, it will come as no surprise to you. So we're going to jump right into it. Just briefly about myself, if you're tuning in for the first time. My name is Sonya Dungee. I have a story to tell. My story began 4.5 years ago when my dad suddenly went to go be with the Lord. I found myself in a very dark place. I was isolated. I was stuck like Chuck for 342 days with no end in sight, no direction. It wasn't until I had a mindset shift, my life forever changed. So now, as a transformation coach, I get to help those that were struggling just as myself, but who are ready to move forward, become resilient with an attitude of expectation and of excellence so that they can reach their economic independence and so that they too can walk in their God given purpose. So, with that being said, thank you for listening, and here we go. So, tonight is not just another episode of the Sonya Dungee podcast, tonight is part two. And when I tell you, if you were here for part one, you already know we did not come to play. We came to heal, we came to grow, we came to keep it 100. My guest tonight is not just a podcast host. She is a woman who has walked through her storm while not losing her faith. She is God fearing. She is a devoted mother. She is a voice for the voiceless. She is a woman who decided that her pain would not silence her purpose. Boss Warrior Queens, please help welcome back Barbie Shepley to the stage. Barbie, thank you so much for coming back on this episode of the Sonya Dungee podcast. So, Barbie, in our last conversation, you opened up a door for the viewers to get that glimpse of your journey, that chapter in your book. And you did a fine job of doing just that. Trust me, the viewers were commenting and reaching out to me.
Thank
I was
you.
getting phone calls and text messages, DMs. It was incredible. You gave us transparency, you gave us vulnerability, and you gave us your truth. So tonight we're going to dive deeper into your story as far as you'll let us go, because storms don't just test, they reveal you.
Mhm.
What I
For
truly
sure.
admire about you, Boss Warrior Queen, is while those winds were blowing, while the pressure was rising, you did not cave in. You leaned into your faith. You showed up for your children. You kept your voice. So, tonight we're going to talk about that journey. We're going to talk about what it really looks like to walk through the storm and still stand with an identity. So, Barbie, can you let us know, who are you besides what we've already shared?
Well, besides all of that, Sonya, I just want to say thank you, first of all. Thank you for letting me go ahead and come on and be able to leave a little bit of transformation and everything for all of your viewers and people who are going to see this coming forward. This is really an amazing thing that I get to go ahead and do, and I appreciate you. And it truly is a privilege from the Most High that I get to go ahead and do this. And literally, I would not be here if it were not for him. He's literally transformed my life and taken me from literally the depths of despair. And the journey has had its ups and it's had its downs. And I think all of us have been there when, we've had ups and we've had downs. And the whole point in all of this is that you don't stop. You just keep moving forward. It doesn't matter if some days you're moving slowly and other days you're moving quickly. You just keep moving. And you cannot allow, one of the things that I've been talking to my people about is, are you living in default, or are you living within the creation piece of what you are created to do, so that way you have a momentum to move forward? It has been very much my heart to, I have actually said a few times in my life that I've had to recreate myself. And after jobs and losing jobs, and, after kids and no kids, and after dad passing, and after mom passing years after, there's been times that I've had to reevaluate what was important and why I was doing what I was doing. When I first started the journey and they told me that I couldn't have kids in order to go ahead, and I had to figure out who I was and why I was here, and I thought my purpose was to birth those children. And for that to not be the purpose, I had a very hard time with. And so I found a creative way, with the help of other people. I found a creative way to be able to be that mom and to be able to mother God's children in the process. There's been a lot of times that there is loss, whether that is sometimes a physical loss or an emotional loss. Mm-hmm. And I believe that both of those equate across the board. And I think sometimes, when my dad passed and when my mom passed, it was different for sure than some of the other hurts that I had gone through in life. But they all hurt. And they all give us that moment of, what am I going to do and how am I going to do it? I don't remember if I shared being at my dad's funeral with my son. And that was one of those moments. I'm sitting in the middle of his funeral and somebody's talking, honestly, I don't even remember who it was. And I'm sitting there and my son had his leg crossed. He had his foot on top of his knee. And I reached my left hand down and put my hand on his ankle. And I'm like, my thought was, Daddy, what are we going to do without you here? What do we do now? And all of a sudden what came to me was, because my statement was also, how are we going to fill your shoes? How are we supposed to do this? Right? We're not prepared. We're not ready. But, lots of questions, lots of things. And as my hand hit Dominic's ankle, I heard a little voice in my head say, it's okay. Those shoes are already filled. Your son is wearing them.
Wow.
And I literally bursted out laughing in the middle of the service. At that point in time in my life, and a lot of people know, I don't do a whole lot of laughter. I have never done a whole lot of laughter. I grew up in a very serious household. My sister had a lot of laughter and a lot of fun, but I didn't. And so for that to happen, and for me to literally, all I could do was laugh out loud and just kept laughing. Everybody thought I had lost my mind, and hands are being laid on me from all over the place because everybody truly thought I had just lost my mind. Laughing wasn't something that I did. Oh, no. And I don't know that I had ever laughed like that in my life. And so to watch what God started in the midst of that, because slowly but surely laughter came, and slowly but surely a little bit of comedy came, to see how God transformed me in the middle of that to, what do we do next and how do we do this? And, did it come with some of those ups and downs as we were trying through that process? Of course it did. I gained weight back that I had gotten rid of, and I had to balance things back out. I had to find where my footing was. I had to go back to the basics of who I am in Christ. And I am God's daughter first. It doesn't matter if dad's here or not. And this was no surprise to God. All of these things that, we go through in the midst of those crises in life. And sometimes we have to go back through them to ensure the fact that our foot is hitting some of those things, those places correctly. The word of God in Romans 12:2 says, do not be moved by the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind and the testing, so that way you can discern the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. And there are times that we have to go find that. We have to go test that, because if we don't, then we aren't being the stewards of what God is giving us in the middle of this. And if we're not renewing our mind and we're not keeping our mind on the right things, then that also goes ahead and plays into our emotions, and our emotions are going to take us away from where the Spirit is trying to take us. Right?
100%.
In Philippians 4:8, it says, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think on these things, and the God of peace will be with you. There's something about the God of peace being with us in the middle of some of these pieces that we need to key into, because God hasn't gotten us this far. Down further in some of my notes, one of the things that the last thing that I did as I was getting ready for this was God took me to, and I may go there and then come back, is in Psalms 23. And God is telling us, that you're going to walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Mm-hmm. We are called to do Psalm 23. Did I say that? I may have said that wrong. There was so much when I looked at this today that I felt like the Holy Spirit spoke to me for you and for this time and for whoever is going to hear this. Because we all know the verse for the most part, that the Lord provides for us. And there's some of these things that as we're going through grief, we're looking at the words, but we're not getting anything else, because we're in the midst of powerlessness. And when we're powerless, it's because there's been a thought that went to our heart, that went from our heart to our hand, and we have no power. When we retake that back and we replay it in our head over and over, we stay powerless. But if we take it back and we look at it and say, that had no power, how can I have power? And go back through and say, I need to change this thought. If I change this thought from fear to excitement or anticipation, then the thought process goes differently from our head to our heart. It then causes hope, which hope then in turn comes down to our hand and creates power. There are things in our lives that God has given us a choice of, do we go this way or do we go this way? And if we're in the middle of powerlessness, we need to pause and remember, okay, that's not working. It doesn't mean shame on you, that's not working. It means, wait a second, that's not working. Let's do something different. It's giving us that moment to take a breath, to pause, to allow us to change what isn't working. That means we need to be aware of what our thoughts are. If we haven't gone ahead and put a rein on our thoughts or a yoke on our thoughts, then our thoughts are going to go to default, and they're going to go ahead and go down the merry little path and not stay where they need to be, because we're not being in control of them and we're not creating with them. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. And we're just going to pause here for one moment
Sure.
because I'm going to ask you uh, a couple of questions. So the first being, during your storm,
Mm-hmm.
was there a moment when you felt like you were losing yourself? Like you mentioned, after dad's passing, did you
Mm-hmm.
feel that you were losing yourself within that storm?
I did. After we got
Did
through the funeral and we were a little
Mhm.
bit, we were probably a month or two after that. I remember thinking to myself, I can't do this job. This is way too big. I'm not prepared. I am not ready, not capable. Um, and I remembered thinking to myself, God, if you don't show me what's going on and how to fix this, I don't know. I can't fix it because I can't see correctly in order to know what battle to fight. I feel like I'm fighting battles on way too many sides.
So, with that being said, and again, you're doing great,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to thank you for being transparent and as
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable. And again, as we spoke before, you can speak as much or as little as, we never want you to feel uncomfortable in the situation because I know I had to learn to be uncomfortable to be comfortable. And gosh, was I very uncomfortable for a long time, but still. But in those moments, did the storm weaken you or do you feel like it strengthened you?
I think there were moments of both, but the moments that made the impact in my life were the ones where I said, I'm not going to let the failure stay. I'm going to keep working and keep working it through until I get there. And it was,
Mhm.
there have been times that it was really take a take a minute, right? Take the night, have the breakdown, pick yourself up. Okay, yep, let's keep moving forward. You know, it was truly not allowing to stay down and push through what I was uncomfortable doing, what I didn't know I could do in order to find what I could do. Life right now, with my work
There's
right
something
now,
that you
there's
just
some of
said.
those pieces. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. I'm sorry. There's something that was incredibly profound in what you just said. That I know I didn't do. You took that moment to pause, like you realized in that moment what needed to be done. And that is so profound because most of us, especially our boss warrior queens, we get so caught up because we're so caught up in everybody else and helping everybody else and doing for everybody else that we don't take the time for ourselves. And you said something, like I said, that was so profound. You said that you paused, you took that moment. So
Mm-hmm.
if anything, viewers, I really want you to hone in on what was said, because when we are in the midst of a storm, whether it's grief, life challenges, hardship, for me it was that grief. I never took that moment. I was so much in denial that that moment never happened for me, to just be in it and pause for a moment and think about where I am and what I'm doing. So thank you, Barbie, for that. And in that, there's another piece that I wanted to ask because you mentioned, um, how did your relationship with God um, anchor your identity when everything else felt unstable?
I honestly had to go back to his word. I had to go back and read what he said about me. I
Mm.
had to go back and read that He formed me, and he knew me before I was ever formed in my mother's womb. I had to go back and read again that he literally has walked through every day of my life before I ever took my first breath. I had to remember that he isn't going to leave me or forsake me. I had to remember that what he started, he'll finish. I had to remember he hasn't brought me this far to leave me now. I had to remember that he didn't leave me back then, and so he won't leave me now. That he loves me just as much now as he did then. And if he's put all this work into me, why would he leave me now? And sometimes we have to face those fears completely head on. And today was one of those examples. I had to face a fear completely head on. And all I could do was sit there and go, God, I need you to guide me in the middle of this because I want to do this correctly. I want to do this so that way you are honored in the midst of this. And this is the fear. When we do that, it allows us to go before the throne with vulnerability, with humility, looking for the right answers. And we've got to ask the right questions. This is the way I see it. How do you need me to see this? Because this is all I'm seeing. And if this is all I'm seeing, I can't respond correctly. When the disciples were in the boat and Jesus is on the water, and they're seeing him, what they think is a ghost, if I'm not mistaken, it was Peter, could be wrong, that said, if it is you, Lord, then let me come out with you. And when he took his eyes off the Lord was when he started to drown. When we realize God is who he says he is, and some of these pieces cannot be denied. There are things that have happened in my life I cannot deny. And I can tell you have absolutely happened. I've had people tell me they couldn't have happened. And I'm like, you weren't there. They happened. I have people that will attest to some of these things because had I not, I probably would have thought I'd lost my mind. And that's how God works, is he will work the miraculous in the middle of our natural, so that way his will be done. It doesn't mean it always works that way. It works that way when he needs it to work that way. And sometimes our timing isn't God's timing. And sometimes we have to pause in order to make sure that the steps we're doing are the right ones and that we're not overstepping. We're not stepping too fast and we're not stepping too slow. And one of the things that I've realized is that all of those steps are ordered of the Lord. So when we make them, they are sure. I've asked God since I was in my 20s, God, illuminate my steps so that my steps are sure. I wanted to make sure that I was doing what he wanted me to do, how he wanted me to do it, so that I was right. I didn't do it wrong. There's so many things from my past that were done wrong. I wanted to make sure that they were done correctly and I could move forward. And sometimes it's just, we've got to move regardless of what it looks like and trust those steps and trust what God is doing in the middle of those. Lately, I have seen God dot some I's and cross some T's that I thought would take years to happen. And I am so excited that God will go ahead and do what he's doing. I just have to be obedient to what I'm doing.
So if I can stop you right there.
Sure.
I'm sorry. If I can just stop you there for a moment, I just want to make sure and recap. So from what the main part of what you were just speaking upon was we still have to move. We can't stay stagnant as I did, stuck in grief for 342 days, because you will continue to stay stagnant and stuck. There comes a point, like you realize that, and you were able to lean on your faith and know that you still needed to move forward. Might have been a little bit painful because your dad, you lost your dad. As people say lost, I say that I know in my heart where my dad is, in my mind, my body, and my soul. He's always going to be a part of me. So
Of course.
I understand loss, but in my mind, I feel like my dad went to be with the Lord and he's always going to be here. So I didn't lose him completely. So
Right.
you were able to lean on your faith to move forward. So for
Mm-hmm.
those who might not be as religious and or have that belief or at that time can't Proverbs 3:5-6 can't trust in the Lord with all their heart and lean not on their own understanding.
Right.
What would you suggest for those viewers in order for them to be able to move forward because they their faith is being tested or what have you, and they just can't lean on it at the moment?
What I hear you saying is that their emotions are being attacked.
Yes.
They're afraid. They're scared. And after I was scrolling, I just let the tablet sit. And what it sat on was John 14:1. Do not let your heart be troubled. Believe in God.
Mm,
Believe also in me. There are pieces that only God can do in our lives. Years ago, I heard it that we have God-sized holes that only God can fill in our lives. And we try to fill those with different things. Some people try to fill them with drugs. Some people try to fill them with alcohol. Some people try to fill them with people, food. Food was a big one for me back in the day, and it still is. If we try to fill those God-sized holes with anything else, it's going to be a bottomless pit. It's going to be a black hole because we can put anything into it, but it's not going to fill it up and it's not going to do what it's supposed to because the only thing that fits in that spot is God. And when
amen.
we realize that we can't be us without Him, whether it's in the middle of grief, whether it's in the middle of our best day, whether it's in the middle of, I had a friend that got run over by a taxi cab when he was 6, whether it's in the middle of any of those days, we still need God to be God in those days.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the middle of life, we still need God to be there. And a lot of times we only go looking for Him. God bless you. We only go
Bless you.
looking for Him
Mm-hmm.
in the days that we need Him.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're not full for the days that we don't need Him, right? If we, when we keep that overflow, because the Bible talks about overflow, a superabundance. When we keep us filled up like that with Him and in that relationship, what happens in the middle of that is that when we do get low, we know where the source came from. We know the source is, right?
Right.
With water, if you can't find water, you back up to the source so you can find water, right? We have to make sure that our source is solid because a lot of people don't rely on God, they rely on religion. That's another story. When you've got a relationship and you know who God is in the midst of any storm, you can then go back to Him and say, wait, in the midst of my divorce, I remember pulling the truck over and I said, God, wait, I thought you said, I thought this was, I thought this was what you said. I thought I was doing the right thing. And it's very humbling to hear, I never said that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, oops, right? We have to, I could have swore I heard it. Nope. Okay. But I can honestly tell you, I would redo everything that I did again because the only way that I got my son was to walk that road. Sometimes there's blessings down roads that we thought that will get us to different pearls and different gems along the way. When we're taking the easy road as opposed to the hard road, we're going to have a different path. One road isn't going to have certain things and one road will. What road do you really want to take? Who do you really want to become in the process? Are you looking to become your best you, or are you looking to just be you? Because those are two totally different people. Who you were yesterday is not who you are today, nor is who you are today who you're going to be tomorrow, because we are ever changing and ever growing. When we do that, as God's word says, we become a new creature.
Yes.
God's word says that we are renewed every day. Every day is a new day. Every day we get to choose, what am I going to do today? Where is my head at? What am I choosing today? Who do I want to be today? Do I want to be better than I was yesterday? Or do I want to just chuck in the towel and go to default and just let things happen as they may? Because when I was grieving with my dad, there were some days that we just let things happen because we couldn't get our brain wrapped around how to move forward. Those things sometimes take, your gears slip a little bit before they get some traction, right? We have to remember that there's a process to the whole thing. And in the process, we learn. And we learn what works and we learn what doesn't work. And sometimes we get far enough in the process that we go, well, wait, why is this not working now? And that, but it used to work. Well, because you're different than you were then. And so what you had then may not be what you need now. All of life
Absolutely.
is ever changing and ever growing. And if we are not available to be somebody new and to grow, then what are we expecting of ourselves? Where are we going? Because from what I've understood from all the biology classes that I've taken, if something's not growing, it's dying. If we aren't learning something new, are we really growing? And if we aren't implementing what we're learning, are we really learning it? Or are we, as a wonderful person in my life calls it, are you just being a filing cabinet? Because if you're
Yes.
just being a filing cabinet, it isn't going to help anybody, right? We can have all this knowledge in our head, but if we don't get it out there, my coach said it to me a while ago. He goes, Barbie, if you don't at least get out there, how are people going to know you can help? Well, do you really think God, in my head, I was like, well, can't God just tell them? And the answer to that is, yeah, he can, but isn't it much easier that people find you because you're out there doing what God is telling you to do? And you're
You're the
using your
vessel.
gifting, you're putting that gifting on display. You know,
Yes.
we have to do something. It isn't just all about chance. There is a process. There is things that we do for reasons that we do them. The same goes for going through grief. We do certain things in order to process through so we don't stay stagnant. The
So
same
I
thing
have this
happened with,
question for you.
sure,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish your
you're fine.
sentence because I probably have
No,
to
you're
ask
fine. Go
something
ahead.
around
Go
that.
ahead. Go ahead. No,
Okay.
we'll go down.
So
It's okay. Go ahead.
I'm like reading the comments and whatnot. So we're going to talk about that too. But when did you realize that your story wasn't just about pain, that there was purpose in your story? What got you to that point?
I think the first thing that got me to that point was becoming a foster parent, because I knew the abuse that I had when I was growing up. I never wanted anybody else to ever feel that way. And I remember telling God when I got saved, if you can take my life and the mess that I've created and make any kind of a message to help other people, I give you my life, I give you everything, because I can't live like this anymore. And literally, as vulnerable as that is, that was exactly what I did. I literally got out of the car and dropped to my knees. And I said, God, you have to do something because I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this. And I remember thinking those same words after my dad died and after my mom died. And each time God said, I've got you. And it was going back to him loving me in the middle of exactly where I was at, to help me to move forward. He met me at the point of my need. And I've heard that so many times in my life. Well, God met me at the point of my need. Sounds great. He met me at the point of my need. He met me right where I was. Each time, he was just waiting for me to go, I need help. I said to a friend of mine earlier this week, I get it. I need help. And he laughed at me because I don't ask for help that much because I feel like I'm a burden, right? I feel like I should be, at my age, I should be able to do this by myself. No, none of us are ever at a point where we should be able to do anything by ourselves. That's the whole point. We
Exactly.
have to be there for
Willpower
one
alone.
another.
Willpower alone will never, ever outdo
Ever,
community. That's a
ever.
hard lesson to learn. It took me a very long time to figure that out. 342 days to be exact. And for me personally, once I allowed myself to get the help that I needed from mentorship and from a community, my life started its journey of healing. So that is something that is so important that you viewers need to realize also. Don't dare do it alone because it's not going
Yeah.
to work. All you're doing is wasting your time and you're taking away from getting the help that you so richly deserve. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be grief or hardship. I mean, I'm even talking
Mhm.
my daughter, she gets on me all the time. My opinionated middle child, Brittany, she tells me all the
Love it.
time, Mom, you need to ask for help. Mom, you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm just
I've
like, in the
even,
beginning, I was like, yeah, okay, okay, like shaking my head, like, okay, she'll stop talking soon, you know. But eventually, the
I
hard
get it.
head
I do
started to
this. I go, yeah, yeah,
soak
yeah.
in
I hear you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
more, 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 more. Yes, but eventually it soaked in, and it is so true. It's so very true. So
We
thank you
do.
for bringing that point out as well. And I want to ask you this: when it comes to growth and becoming,
Mhm.
if you will, what can you tell the women that are still in that storm regarding their identity, because we spoke about
Mhm.
that several times tonight, but what specifically can you tell them in those regards to help them in the process of knowing that this too will pass and you can, as we've been speaking about, move forward?
If I hear your question correctly, is how do I help them find their identity or how do I encourage them to look for their identity?
to to look for their identity, you know, because it's there. So don't allow
Mm-hmm.
themselves to get lost in it where they've just let go of whom they are. And you
Who they
touched
are.
on that tonight in your story, but yes, can you elaborate?
There, to me, it goes back to, are you wanting, who do you want to be? Who do you see yourself as in 5 years? If you don't see yourself the way that you are right now, or you see yourself worse, then what do you want to do in order to make it better? You have to find out what your values are. You have to find out why you want certain things in your life. When you have that basis, God can then show you the the differences between some of the things that we think we want and what we really want. The difference between wanting money or wanting security. Those are they're different things. But we can think that we want something, but we truly want something else. When we are redoing our identities and we're looking for our identity, one, we need to realize that God already has that and we already have that true identity within us. We just need to find it. When we read God's word and we see what he says, it will resonate. And when it resonates, it's like something on the inside that goes, wait, I know that. And oh, that's it. There's something that will key in somehow, some way to something that you read within God's word. And there are lots of scriptures that can go ahead and help them start to understand their identity. But the best thing to do is to go through a class that will teach them how to build that, how to go ahead and search that, and to ask certain questions to be able to get them to think about things deeper than just one or two questions deep. My coach goes ahead and says, if you don't ask 10 questions deep, you really don't know the answer. Some of those things can be pretty deep. And if we don't give ourselves some time and some room to be able to do that, that's when we go ahead and not become who we really truly want to become, because we haven't taken time to do that.
Thank you for
And
that.
I am grateful that I have people around me that have encouraged me to take time, that have encouraged me if I don't know, or if I have some questions, or if they see me going left, they go, what are you doing?
Yes.
Why are you doing that? You know, I'm grateful that the community that I have around me, there's been some of the people that have been around that I've been able to see every few months. Within the last 8 months, I haven't seen them. Not only do I miss them, they miss me. And everybody is like, are you really okay? Are you really okay? Because there hasn't been that check-in with everybody.
Right.
And that's the best thing ever, because I know that they care. When you know people care, you'll listen to them. I heard it said a long time ago, you'll never know what someone will say until you know they care. And there's
Can you
something
repeat
about
that?
that.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat
You'll
that? I just
never,
want to make sure everybody heard that.
you'll never hear what they're really saying until you know how much they care.
Yes. And I want
There's
to
something
just jump there.
there's something about the caring piece, and knowing that somebody will truly care enough about you to allow you the room to figure out, who am I?
Yes.
Are they really going to love me if I find out? Because if I find out that I'm this horrible, that was what I had to do originally in the very, very beginning. I had to look at, my coach at that time had me look at myself in the mirror and tell myself every night before I went to bed that I was God's daughter, I was his princess, and I am loved. And I had to say it out loud until I believed it. I would sit there for a half an hour with tears streaming down my face going, I don't believe this. To me, that's really where my identity came from, was knowing that God loved me so much that he literally pulled me out of the miry clay. He pulled me out of the dirt and said, I don't want you to stay here. I love you. I don't want you here. He doesn't want us in the middle of grief. He wants us living a life. That's what he's given us to live. And if we don't give him enough room to show us who we are, as we are, in the good, in the bad, and in the ugly, we have to be willing to allow whatever it is to be good, bad, or ugly, and then decide if we want to keep it or change it. But we have to see what's there. I was so afraid to look at what was there because what I saw was bad. What I didn't know was that I'm looking through the wrong eyes. I was looking through my eyes, not through God's eyes.
The lens
Because
of the
God
Lord.
saw me as his daughter, going through all of the things I was going through. I had lost the boyfriend that I thought I was going to marry, and he passed. I lost my godbrother, and he passed. I ended up going through my first divorce, and I was an absolute mess, and my life was in shambles.
Wow.
And my coach is telling me I have to tell myself that I'm the daughter of God, I'm his princess, and he loves me. And I'm like, you okay? Sure. It was the hardest thing I ever did. I really believe it was the hardest thing I ever did, because I had to slowly allow myself to believe that I truly was who God says I was, because I didn't believe it.
Wow.
And if we don't allow God to change us, we will stay where we are. If we don't allow him the room, and we don't allow ourselves a little bit of grace, he only needs the faith of a mustard seed. The mustard seeds are really, really tiny.
Yes, they are.
And if we don't leave him the room, how are we ever really going to know who we are? How are we going to know what we can really accomplish and do past our grief if we stay in the middle of that grief?
And
There
that's
may be, there's
I'm
humongous
sorry,
things that could be there. Go for it.
that's an incredible question. Like, you just knocked my question out the park with that. I mean, it is so true. And we often don't think about ourselves. We don't ask those questions. We don't think. That's the problem. We don't stop and pause. And with that, I want to stop and pause right here, because storms, they don't shake us upon circumstances. They shake our identity too. And there's so many women that are silently struggling. I was one of them. And
Me too.
it's one thing to survive a storm. It's another thing to remember who you are while you are in the middle of that storm. And those are the things that you really touched upon tonight. And that is another reason why I'm so grateful that you said yes to come back. And I wish we had all night long again, because I would just sit there and we would just go and we would go. But um I want to stop here also, because the comments are flying in, and I don't want to be disrespectful by not touching upon some of
Sure.
the comments that that came in. And we have a new viewer, and I want to welcome you so much for coming. And I trust that this won't be your first. Uh, we normally go live on the Sonya Dungee podcast at 8 p.m., but honestly, I was jobbing tonight till late. And so Barbie so graciously she said yes to a later time. So just so that you know, we're normally 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays, but we pop up everywhere as well. I am doing Black History all month long. I will be doing several pop-ups because I have not done them as I promised daily. I just life was life, and I was doing some things, and I went away. Um, Speaking about going away, I just want to touch upon this too. When you had mentioned about community, I just wanted to share this with you. So, and it's not about me, but I cannot tell you how my heart was so touched today and yesterday, because, as you know, I live in Strong Island, okay? And I could not fly back from my training in Texas because they were closing down and they were canceling everything. And me being me, I'm like, I'm just going to figure it out. I just have to get back to job, but I'm going to figure
Mm-hmm.
it out. Finances, whatever, I'll work through it. I wasn't alone in this, but what touched my heart in such a profound way is I had somebody reach out to me yesterday, just asking how I was, and I was like, huh? I hadn't spoke to that person in quite some time, haven't seen them in years, and they just reached out from a totally another state and said, hey, I just want to make sure you're okay. Then today, somebody within our community that I haven't, I never met, she reached out to me and she asked me, how was I doing? Was I okay? And I was just like, what? Me? Like, and I'm saying this because we take for granted often about our community. I love my
Mhm.
community. I lean on my community even when they don't know. By me just being there and knowing that they're there, it means everything to me. And just
Mhm.
because I had people reach out and say, "Hey, are you okay?" Even you said, "Hey, why didn't you let me know you were in Texas?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, Barbie. I was in training, and then I was on the phone most of the rest of the time. Every time they canceled the flight, I was like, "Hey, I have to get back," and I was spending hours on the phone that I didn't think. Let me call Barbie because I know Barbie has me covered. It's just like, you go in survival mode. So I want to thank you so much because
Right.
you did say to me as well, hey, why didn't you reach out? So I just said that because it's so important to lean on your community.
Mhm.
And it's not that you're going to come across as needy. It's not going to come across as you're bothering anybody because you're not. What I found out was when I don't reach out to my community, things happen that could be it could have been what's the word, prevented. So
Mhm.
community is important. Networking in a community is important. Our mentor is now watching us. So I want to thank you so much for watching. He's got blessing us, and community is icon. So yes, it definitely is. And going back to the comments really briefly, we have people joining from Miami and from Harlem and from Jacksonville and from other places I don't even know where, but they're saying watching you two icons live from Harlem. Okay, I hear you, Barbie. Action cures everything. In the middle of powerlessness, we need to pause. So they're saying value, and like I said, there's some new viewers, and I want to thank you so much for joining. And we get 100% value, and I'm seeing it time and time again in real talk. And I'm telling you, Miss Barbie is incredible. Don't
Oh,
sleep
bless you.
on her. I am getting ready to ask her where we can find her. So get pen and paper and write it down and make sure that you go and subscribe, because this quiet soul is an angel that we are blessed from on this earth. And the things that she speaks upon with conviction is amazing, and her podcast is truly iconic to say the least. And I'm seeing some more God. Uh, it says, God isn't that the truth? We moms we shouldn't be asking for help. And that is so not true. That's then another one is that's so true. In addition, there are many levels of grief that have to be acknowledged and dealt with. Amen.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Storms shape
For
us
sure.
into who God wants us to be based on how we go through the storms. Community is vital for our survival. We need we were never created for
Mhm.
isolation. That is so true. And I wish
That
I
is
would
true.
have known those
Yep.
words 4.5 years ago, but I just wasn't there.
Right.
And
Well,
giving
we don't know what we
credit
know until we know it.
where credit is due. 100%. Exactly. And giving credit where credit is due. One thing that, and I love that word profound, and I use it, yes, I do, is our mentor said to me, because shortly after my dad went to be with the Lord, his dad went to be with the Lord. And I am
Mm.
um I really pay attention to things, and I was watching his demeanor, and I know that so many times in funerals I've heard to be absent from the bodies to be present with the Lord. I even had a
Mhm.
pastor had a glove on, and he took the glove off and he said, "This is the body, this is our spirit." And I was like, yeah, I get it, but that wasn't my dad. You see what I'm saying? I
Right.
get it and I
Right.
respected it. But it wasn't until I had the mindset shift, and then I was open and able to receive that our mentor um had a conversation that changed everything for me. And again, that was after his dad's passing. So I so appreciate him for his dedication to more than just being a mentor in a Be Iconic community. And so I'm one that I give roses long before we are in a funeral parlor someplace or at a cemetery. So
Mhm.
I thank him for
Mhm.
that so much. And then I just want to also say, as we're getting ready to wrap this up, um, as far as you go, Barbie, I have seen tremendous growth in you from when I first met you till now. Your posture has changed. You look great. You look light. I don't see that weight in your face reflected as I once did. You have been an anchor to the Be Iconic community. You have been present, and I'm telling you, not because you're on a podcast, but I want you to really receive this. Keep going, keep moving, like you said.
Mhm.
Don't let anyone ever stop you. There are people out there that need to hear your voice. They're waiting to hear from you. And don't be discouraged if there's none on your podcast or one, because let me tell you, after tonight, you just gained new viewers. And so I want to ask you, where can our viewers follow you on social interests?
On social interest, they can follow me on Facebook at Barbie Shepley, BarbiShepley. Instagram, same thing. YouTube, same thing. I'm pretty
Okay.
simple.
Okay. And what night of the week? Where do they find you? What
Wednesday,
day? What time?
that's a great question. Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Dallas time, which is Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern, puts it Mountain Time 5 and Pacific Time 4. And
Okay.
every Wednesday, and my master classes, I've actually switched to doing those on Friday, but somebody was challenging me to possibly do it on Wednesday at the same time. So, well, I'm working on that. We'll see.
More to follow. Okay. So
More to follow, right?
afterwards, if you just put in after we close, just put your information in the chat so that everybody has an opportunity to go back in there and follow you. All right.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
So as I asked you before when you were here for part one, please fill in the line. Oh, to be always destined for blank.
Greatness.
All right.
Always.
Yeah. So with that being said, let me see. Let me see. Okay. All right. All right. Yes. Yolanda wants us to know that is her. Hey, Barbie. Hey, Sonya. Hello.
I
It's
love her.
great having you
She's
on. Yeah.
amazing.
Yes. She doesn't know this yet, but we're going to get her back. We're going to get her on the Sonya Dungee
Oh,
podcast
good.
because
Yep,
she
yep.
has a, a very
She's got a lot of things that she's gone through in life.
powerful. Yes, she has a very powerful
Yep.
story to tell, and we're going to have
Mhm.
her come on and be a guest. So, with that being said, whew, I just I had to exhale. So tonight wasn't just a conversation; it was a revelation. Barbie, I want to thank you for your honesty, for your transparency, for your obedience, to say the least. I want to thank you for not allowing your storm to rename you or to reshape you. So here's the truth: storms don't define us,
Mhm.
silence doesn't define us,
Right.
struggles does define us,
Mhm.
identity does. Identity
100%.
isn't built when everything is calm.
Yeah,
It's revealed in the shaking and in those storms of life. So
for
tonight,
sure.
if you heard anything, let it be this: you are not what happened to you. I'm going to say that again.
Mm-hmm.
You are not what happened to you.
Yep.
You are who you decide to remain. We are nixing the lies. We're fixing our focus. And we are mixing faith with our fight. We grow on purpose. So, with that being said, stay safe, stay well. God bless you all. And bye for now.
Love you.
Love you too.